I do think we are still waiting for the ban to come through for the side of Infamous. They are having a bit of a think on this one. I mean, last time they went for the Sky ban, which was maybe not so good, but they're going to go for the Kestrel ban, leaving Petal still on the table. Do you think Infamous are just looking to counter this Petal this time? Or they might, I don't know, fall into the same trap?
I mean, they can. They have got a lot of heroes to actually counter the Petal, but maybe the side of BREN ESPORTS would like change things up and not just rely on the Petal. However, the side of Infamous now, they got a pick. They can pick out Petal for themselves, and with one of the most reliable counters, like I mentioned earlier on, would be that of Celeste, and that's already taken out from the Petal or from the equation, from the hero roster. But now we will be seeing a glaive coming out. I'm not surprised if Infamous will just go back onto their own comp, where it's just protect the box or protect the carry comp, and just try their bestest to shred through whatever, you know, the side of BREN ESPORTS will bring out in this particular draft.
Well, now it is the question of whether BREN ESPORTS play back Petal, especially going DC, because it really is what will shut down Weapon Power Petal. If you're able to make them stop attacking, well, then you've basically stopped the powerhouse or the main source of power coming from that Weapon Power Petal. And it is something to note that last time Glaive was actually a first ban, and for good reason, that Glaive has been picked up by Infamous, is very strong with the afterburn and just the damage he's able to put out once getting in there, because Weapon Power Glaive is so strong at the moment. But as I saw the Petal come up, Weapon Power Petal just came to mind, and BREN ESPORTS are going to play it with confidence once again, looking at a fairly similar comp to last time. However, they had to ban out the Black Feather because they were on the blue side, and they did not want to let that go over into the hands of Infamous, because the CP Black Feather at the moment is also another one of those heroes that's just very strong.
Well, definitely. It's either CP or Weapon Black Feather, still very strong. However, the side of BREN ESPORTS will lock in your Bay, and that will be Sky, and it's just down to the side of Infamous to try counter what BREN ESPORTS is putting out at this point in time. Very, very strong drafting prowess coming out from the side of BREN ESPORTS. The side, I always used to say, yes, that Grace and Glaive should never be in the same team because they are so very strong, but BREN ESPORTS just so very comfortable just letting both Gs get through. And it's just down to whether or not their last pick, if they pick out that Taka, maybe it'll work, but they have to go up against a Petal as well. This is Scarf. Scarf is something I'm thinking about, but then again...
And let us know, as always, which team you guys are cheering for. And with that, Luxuria, the same old question of who you are cheering for this match. I know last game you said you're very much an Infamous supporter. I'm a BREN ESPORTS kind of guy. Is that still the case looking at the drafts here?
Well, honestly, SNK going into the jungle of BREN ESPORTS, trying to secure some fun for himself.
Yep. Instead, it looked like they go KO. They did manage to pick up actually at work at them. They might be able to fight it out with Mr. Jim. Right now, they could even be buying time for the rest of Infamous, but it looks like a bit of a failed strategy. And SNK just going to run into the turrets there, end their life sooner so they can get back to the base quicker. And I'm not too sure about that strategy going into the backs.
Well, honestly, looking at the draft this time, we have Sync1 on the Weapon Petal and Mr. Jim on the CP Sky and placed in lane. And I guess the swap out is logical because what, you know, Mr. Jim don't want to face is Spaghetti in that lane and the Scarf that can just burn down the Mun Soul very quickly. That way, you know, when Sync1 is on that Petal, Petal is up against that of Chingy, and it will be a relatively easy time for the Petal to just farm up, get his items as well. Granted, you don't get the items as fast as when you are placed in lane, but all in all, it will be a logical put up, or rather logical swap up coming up for the side of BREN ESPORTS. But back to your question, I hope, like said, the Infamous will have a 1-up, pushing this into a game 3. And the only reason I think that way is because I think Infamous has got what it takes. Bren Chong has got a potential as well to close this series out 2-0. There's no issues. I mean, they beat one of the powerhouses in Southeast Asia. They can definitely do it again in their own stride. So I'm not surprised if they do. But I hope, because now at this point in time, Infamous is kind of the underdogs now. Mr. Jim now.
Although Mr. Jim needs to be careful, does get... And there's going to be Glaive picking up the return kill. And you can already see that what you said before about putting this Glaive and this Grace on the same team is such a dangerous idea to do. I mean, they allowed it, essentially. They picked up the Lance first pick where they had Grace as an option. But it was more that comfort pick, I'd like to say, for Guessing X.
It is definitely a comfort pick. I mean, Guessing X just plays so well on this Grace, so on this Lance, so there is no reason whatsoever to just swap it out. I mean, if it's not broken, why change it at all? So, and with Lance as well, there is a lot of CCs that Lance can provide, a lot of utility Lance can provide going into games. So I'm not surprised why they pick it up. But all in all, we are looking at a very, very, very slow game. They just need their items. They just want their items. For Spaghetti now taking a couple of 4 barrage hits here and there, but all in all, it will be fine for both teams.
Yep, looks like just a bit of early game. A few first kills that went over, and if we look in terms of early game, it's hard to say. I would almost give it to Infamous, just the CC they have, allowing them to get the kills with the benediction into the Holy Nova that Grace has available to them, and then Chingy with the Afterburn, and then you've got even count out the goop that can be used to slow down and really catch out the enemies. I think that Infamous have a better early game in this situation, and you talked about before on the weapon power pedal having a very interesting kind of power spike pattern, and I'm not sure how well it will work out against this enemy team who has this who they are deciding to hyper carry with 39 CS over to the 24 that Mr. Jim has at the moment. So yeah, it will be tough for BREN Esports this match, to say the least.
Yep, it will be relatively tough for a BREN Esports since, you know, Scarf can just remove Petal, get to the backlines in terms of that Spitfire on those Spitfires. So it will be difficult, but then we cannot quite count out Mr. Jim as well. Mr. Jim on this Sky means that he can just solely strike into the backlines, try the bestest to remove Spaghetti, but Guessing X though.
Oh, Chingy looking. Yeah. Oh, they're sticking around, but Mr. Jim going to those backs to pick up, and I think this is what BREN Esports realized, that they're going to match the Sky with the Scarf at least a bit if they want to get into this game a bit more and survive through the mid-game, because Infamous putting down so much pressure on this turret right now. You can see Spaghetti on that backline just doing work onto the turret, putting Spitfires in, and then Guessing not able to find the impales that they need. But I think even if they do, at this point, BREN Esports can't really go in off the back of them. They don't have the early game damage like Infamous does.
They don't indeed, and Chingy very patient with those afterburn, just looking for the right and the opportune moment for him to go in, but they will just hope to siege this turret. SNK goes in with a benediction. Oh, Chingy, there you go.
Mr. Jim actually body blocking one of those Spitfires from hitting the turret, and there's going to be a def way, and Mr. Jim lands for barrage damage onto Spaghetti. Oh, the positioning right now from BREN trying to keep his turret alive, but they're going to have to back off as the minions push in, and Chingy able to just go in there and pick it up with ease. And now, whether Infamous are going to be greedy is the question and go into the enemy jungle to steal away some farm. They are going to do so. Spaghetti needing that mid-tier and able to get the healing and mana benefits from that, and then now going to move their way onto Goldminer. They really aren't stopping with anything, and this looks a lot more like the Infamous we know. They get the kill, they get some objectives, and in this case they didn't even get objectives. They simply pushed BREN Esports back, took their turret, took some farm, and they've gone and taken the mid camp as well. Yep,
exactly. I mean, with one kill you can quite achieve a lot. You don't really have to kill, just get your enemies down very, very low, and you can push pretty much. You can pretty much push your advantage from there, just capitalizing on how low they are. If not, then the amount of damage they do not have in this current early game, because Sync 1 on that weapon power petal, you really need farm to get up to your first tornado trigger into your second one as well. If you have those, then you can definitely put out adequate damage, but at this point in time, Sync 1 will just lack the damage. SNK being very, very outrageous now and just going in for it in bait.
Ooh, and this is Infamous once again. It's more so helping them out in towards the late game. It's a bit of a, I guess, invest out the Crystal Sentry so early, and now we see that they're going to just have that much more freedom roaming into the enemy jungle after they've already taken turret. And of course the Crystal Sentry going to come back in a few minutes, but I'm talking about especially into the real late game when they manage to eliminate it completely, because Infamous is one of those teams that like to do that quite often, as they just go for objectives after objectives, and it's just real great objective control and what leads to the wins overall. Of course, Infamous overall is a team, very skilled players in that, but they just understand how the game works and how to win it out and finish these games.
Yep, and Mr. Jim on this guy really needs to get all the items needed for Sky to just put out, you know, enough damage all in all. So at this point in time, we will see a rather slow, farmy game, if you like to call it, rather than Infamous. Infamous, in fact, can just push their, you know, the advantage now, knowing that Sky requires quite an amount of farm and quite an amount of items to actually put out enough damage. Infamous is playing very stale, very stagnated, just would not help the cause whatsoever. I mean, they have got their great power spike now. Spaghetti has got a Shattered Glass, Eve of Harvest, and a Clockwork, whereas Mr. Jim on that Sky only has got their Broken Myth and Frostburn. This great time for Infamous to just push and push and push, but they do respect BREN Esports as a whole and do not want to go quite as aggressive as they can actually do.
Ooh, but that might change up in just a second as the Crystal Infusion Beam Spaghetti is on hold right now, and Chingy picking up that tornado trigger. This could be what they were waiting for. Though Spaghetti had that power spike earlier, so does Chingy now as they pick that up before Sync 1 even has their second item. And you can see how much behind BREN Esports are, because previously, as you mentioned, when Spaghetti went to buy that Clockwork was when Mr. Jim finished off their Broken Myth. So a whole item ahead of Mr. Jim at this point. And as you can see, Sync 1 with only 230 gold is still quite a far way off completing that tornado trigger themselves. And it looks like, unless they're able to go for the steal, Infamous are going to be able to get that gold mine and now push away BREN Esports. Guessing needs to be careful, and there's a lot of damage going down. Fountain forced to be used on the side of BREN, but for Barrage doing a lot of damage. Meanwhile, no one checking Spaghetti. Spaghetti able to get some free shots in with these Spitfires. Doesn't have a Broken Myth just yet, so it's not going to be stacking up, but still helps out in the long run. As Spaghetti going to jump in there with the Afterburn, getting the kill, getting the Crystal Sentry. And it looks like they might even catch out Guessing. Oh, Guessing not able to make the jump over the wall, is in a bit of trouble, and he does it at the last second. Oh, very clutch, managing to not hand over another kill to the side of Infamous, but they're just going to go for that turret instead. They take it down instantly, and this is definitely looking a lot more like a general Infamous game that we see.
Oh, that Impale missed! That Impale could have just caught Chingy out immediately, and Mr. Jim going down very, very low.
But it looks like the side of Infamous don't even way BREN. My own Spaghetti just too strong at the moment, has barely any, actually no defense at this point. Just going for that Shattered Glass, Eve of Harvest, and the Clockwork building into the Broken Myth. And right now I think they can really rely on two factors. The fact that BREN Esports really just unable to at the stage they're at, and the second fact that you've got Grace on your team with the Divine Intervention, and you can really rely on that if the enemy ever does jump on you.
Yep, definitely. And one thing as well is that we see this is very, very like Infamous all in all. They don't really need kills. They just know when to apply pressure and where to apply it, and they can just easily secure objectives for themselves. Unlike the previous game, in this game itself, 12 minutes in or close to 12 minutes in, oh, another Afterburn.
Yep, and we do see up in lane just Spaghetti and Chingy right now. Looks like SNK now going to the fight as SNK jumping in with the benediction. Mr. Jim going very low. There's the Dragon's Breath being used, and Chingy using the Afterburn to punt them away, but guessing looks like he's going to fall, and he does. Infamous picking up another kill and slow a gold lead as they now go in, and they are trying to push for this anchor turret at only 12 minutes 20 in, and it looks like they'll be able to do it. They have the damage available to them, but look at that. The return damage coming out by Chingy as he dives onto Sync 1, and they manage to get the turret anyway. Infamous just being so overwhelming at this point and really pushing towards that 10k gold lead. Now seeing at 32.8 over to the 34.3, and that's the Sentry eliminated, I believe, already.
Yep, that is the Sentry eliminated. 12 minutes and 50 in, not the fastest one. According to records, Vainglory records, I think the fastest was 8 minutes and 30, if I remember correctly. But all in all, Infamous doing very well for themselves in this game, inching ever so closer to the 10k gold lead that they generally would have against another team. And BREN ESPORTS now, they just really need to pull themselves together as a team to only fight fights that they have got, you know, the advantage against. Mr. Jim now lacking seriously in farm and in damage as well. Spaghetti already has got 4 full damage items as compared to Mr. Jim only having 3. Granted, you know, Mr. Jim, you know, wanted that early reflex block and thus not able to complete the items as soon as Spaghetti. But Infamous now just looking so strong, very, very strong. Their 3rd gold miner this game.
Yep, and that is going to push them up to 36k. So close now, trailing behind the 6.8. But I'm looking at as the fact that Infamous are aiming to get to 10k here, ahead of the side of BREN ESPORTS, and there's going to be the engage coming out by Infamous, and Spaghetti going to be able to pick up that kill with the Dragon's Breath. Mr. Jim doing a great job with the death from above to push away Infamous, but it's not going to be enough. They're still going to make work on this turret so early on for what you would consider to be a late game team comp. They're really trying to finish this early, but Spaghetti already with 4 damage items, so deadly. They need to be careful. Mr. Jim so low on health, and they're just working on their 2nd turret now. Guessing is back up on the fall, but Sync 1 will die before he even gets low on health. Looks like he could go down any second now. Mr. Jim trying to position themselves behind Spaghetti, but the game is already over as Infamous finishing that one even before Kraken is on the fold, managing to get the triple kill just for style points at the end. The ace, 14 minutes 51 in. GG, well played.
GG, well played indeed. 6 kills, 14 minutes in. People might think this is a